Hey, welcome back to Soda Time Restoration. We're doing just a kind of tear down on the rack, obviously repainting the faceplate, making it look like a brand new piece, but this probably be a one-shot deal. We'll probably do the start to finish all in one video here, so if you want something all in one piece, this is the one to watch. So hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate everybody that's jumped on. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Unbelievable. We really appreciate everything that all the subscribers have, the good comments, and just never really realized that many people would be interested in seeing a Coke machine tore down and put back together. But we'll get started tonight. One thing it doesn't take, not very much. If you got a nut driver or a pair of vice grips, first thing I always do, take plenty of pictures. If you've never done one before, take a lot of pictures so you can kind of remember how it come back together. You can always come back to my video. We may speed up something and might miss something, but one of the first things and the easiest things to do is pulling all your rails out. Rails or rods, I should call them. Don't lose them. Start bagging everything. If you're a first timer, be very organized, because I know it might be a while before you get stuff back from a powder coater. We'll be sending that off this week to the powder coater. Next thing you want to do is get there's some rods that are bolted in, and you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5. There's one in the middle, and then you got the 4 on the 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. So we'll get them taken out. I'll show you some things that you want to send to the powder coater and things that you don't want to send to the powder coater, because I've done it and it didn't work out too good in some of the areas. I probably shouldn't have sent it in. I ended up having to go back in and sand some areas down where the powder coat gets so thick on the slide mechanism, it didn't like it. So there's some things I do powder coat and some things I try to not do just because of prior problems. But you're gonna have some tubes. Hang on to them. I always stick those nuts back on there. They're kind of got a self-locking tab on those nuts. Keeps them from vibrating them loose in time. I've loosened some of these up. Typically, they don't come out that easy, but I've already pre-loosened some of these up just to make sure I wasn't going to have any issues. If you get one that's just stuck and you get them, I guarantee you this is one rack that's been not in a bad corrosion spot, and everything's coming apart pretty nicely. One less down here. So there's our 5 rods. And if you look at them, they're all the same. If you've got one that comes out of there and it's different, somebody's probably taken it out, but they should all be the same length, and you should have 2 tubes. Those are for strength in the rack, so when it comes apart, it keeps that rack really nice and tight. So next step, if you want to go ahead and pull the shelves out, you could. Take this faceplate off. So the faceplate, as you can see, they didn't put much paint on it from the factory. I mean, it's just very little. Barely covered up the steel. So this is going to go to the bead blaster and get totally blasted all the way down. This is going to the powder coat, and they're all the same, so don't worry about a location. They're all the same. So that stack will go to the powder coat. Next thing I like to do, there'll be some springs attached to this. Make sure you don't lose them. These look like they're in very good shape. If not, it looks like maybe you might have replaced one of them. One of them looks really good. If you want to take them off right now, you can, so you don't lose them, because this rail here, some 81s. I haven't figured out which ones, but I'm sure there's something to the effect of which one gets it. But this is one of the rail systems that you can take out and buff. If you go back on one of my last 81s, man, it come out really, really good. So I will be taking these. I'm gonna flip this over right now, and these screws right here, we're gonna take them out and disassemble the whole rail system. So Let me go grab a Phillips right quick, one thing I didn't have. Now we're going to take off these little paddles. This screw, do not lose. Those are tough, tough, tough to find. Be very cautious. Use a good Phillips bit when you do this so you don't strip them out, because I've not had to go get any of these, but I've had people calling me looking for some, so I know they're tough to find. Pull those out. If you want to grab the shaft from below, sometimes that's easier. Might get you a little bit of a flat screwdriver, kind of pop them loose at times. And the last one. Man, it's always the last one's the worst one to come out. It's getting there. There it goes. Okay. So, rack rail system is out. Let's throw these out of the way so you can kind of see this. It's not that big a deal, but if you're slowing the video down and kind of watching some things. On this particular area here, you're going to slide these all out. This is items, do not powder coat. Anything on this rail system, I'll leave it alone. It'll come back and get you. It will come back and get you. And it feels like everything feels really good. This spring, there's a spring in here that pulls this rack back down. You'll see a lock-in spot right here. You can see that. That's where that spring attaches at. So we'll be taking that loose, but we'll get all this apart and really clean it really good and make sure nothing is missing, but everything looks really good. It's a very clean unit, not bad. Don't see really no corrosion at all. It's really done really well. I'm very impressed. So this side here, we will buff. This is the area. This is sitting in the machine basically like this. So this front, I'll buff really nicely, and we'll buff this out really nicely. And it will. Now there's some that's not a steel that'll buff out really good. This is one that you can do really nicely with. But so get your shells powder coated. Our rail system here, these rails here, we're probably going to send those in and get them blasted. And looks like all the springs are on there. So pay attention how all that goes together. We'll shoot a video on going back together. But basically for teardown, that's really about it. We'll release these arms here at one shot, and everything else will come out pretty nicely. We're back on the rack, and tonight the rail system in there is something that can be cleaned up. Takes a little bit of work, and I'm going to try tonight for somebody that doesn't have a buffer, just using stainless steel. And I've kind of done a little piece here, show you what I've got. You can kind of tell where we're going, but man, it cleans it up so nice. Yes, you could paint these, you could powder coat them. It is an area where it does get a bottle drug beside it, but I just don't like powder coating anything with the slides. I've seen people say they've had good luck. I have not. The last one I did ended up having to almost sand every little slide to get it gets so thick on there, and it didn't work very good, so I had to basically start all over. So I try to clean these up as good as I can. We'll start with some, I think this is 4 steel wool. I'm going to do kind of a process that I've done in the past. If you've got a buffer, it would go quicker if you had a buffer, but I'm going to try tonight, just see what we can do. Just see how much time it takes to get this really, really nice with just 2 products. But we'll start off with the steel wool, and I won't do the whole rack tonight. I just want to show you what you can do to get this really nice. Steel wool does actually pretty good. It just doesn't give it the finishing touch, and hopefully we can do that with our Vivid Restore tonight. But there's not quite halfway, but we'll give you a look here. There's kind of a halfway point. You can kind of see the before and what the after will look like. That is just with steel wool. It cleans that up really nice, and you can kind of take your hand. What's kind of cool is feel how smooth it is, and then when you get over here, yeah, big difference, big difference. So let's go a little bit farther. This is kind of a show piece, I think, because right when you open your entry door, this is what's showing. And I really like to see these just really nice when they open up the door. It looks like a polished piece of steel. Steel wool will get that rusty film off there. Wipe that off. Now we'll take a little bit of Vivid Restore, a couple inches we'll take here. Won't take that much, we'll get a couple inches off here. When you're doing the Vivid Restore, you will see a little, if it's working, it's getting a little bit of the metal off. You'll see some black. We'll do a pass here, and then we'll come back, wipe it down, so you can see the results as we go. Well, it feels good already. Whew. Really smooths that metal, gives it that clean detail. Probably not going to be what you could get with a buffer, obviously, but you know, a little bit of steel wool in this, if you want to get that rack out of there while you got it apart, it just cleans it up so nicely. But give you another shot here. There's kind of a before and the after. Just gives it that shine, cleans it up. Facing looks really good. We're gonna give it one more little coat. The Vivid Restore product, got it on Amazon where it's available. Right now, it's $19.95. Obviously, if you got Prime, you can get a for free delivery to your front door. It's the only way I'm selling the product right now, but let me give you a little bit of a shot of a wipe down here. It's really took another pretty good little product. Let's see if we can get it buffed out here for you. Hopefully you can see the results there. Any stainless, copper, brass, any of those, it will clean it up. I always say it's a finished product. You're going to use it at the end of your polishing of all your metals, your stainless, your chrome. If you got a Harley that's got a lot of chrome on it, if you want to go back to one of my videos, we did do a Harley. One of my friends that had one that he'd wrecked, we went back in and I helped him buff out all his chrome on that vehicle. Man, it just looked great. But take a look at that. That is kind of a before section here, and this is coming into the polished out. Didn't take us a lot of time. Probably you could do a whole rack in less than 30 minutes. But we're going to continue tonight working on getting this polished out. We've gotten our powder coating back, and we've got our rack somewhat starting to come back together. But stay with us. When we come back, we'll probably be putting this thing back together. Hey, welcome back. We're back on the 81. I've got the shells all powder coated. We've done the faceplate inside and out, which it never looked like that. I hope I got some good shots of that earlier on, because they barely even painted at the factory, barely got the back sides painted, but this one's got a good base coat, clear coat finish on it. But tonight, if you've got one apart and you're trying to find out, hey, I can't remember where this goes, hopefully you will have a chance to go back on this video and kind of watch some things. But we're going to start right now, see if we can get a couple of things started right quick. We've kind of just right now, I've taken this piece off. It is just now, I just put the arm pieces up through the housing. So if you got yours loose, if you're looking at loose housing, take those arms, and I'll pop this back off. So we polished this one out. As you can see, man, it just come out really good. Probably better than I thought it would. It was really, really rough. But we got it polished out, and we're gonna go back together. This rail right here, needs to be in there. If you haven't put it in already, make sure you put these in with this side. There's a kind of a 50-50 deal here. You want that one always to the right and this one always to the far left. So let's slide all the way in. Let's get it, the first one all the way in. And let's, if you have there's one little hip, there's a little hip right here that you got to get over. And then there's two more here. So take that bar, scoot it out just a little bit, and just like that. So we'll just keep filing these in. Just remember, this side is always out. Got the long leg facing down the rack. If it stops like right there, take that screwdriver, pull that out just a little bit, and it should, I say it should let you go all the way in. And we'll just keep feeding these in. Once you figure out that little hip there, once you get past it, that's usually what holds you up a little bit. They always come apart a lot easier than they go back together. So make sure when you're putting these in that the legs, when I say legs, the legs need to be down so they're riding in the rack that way. Get them all to the bottom. And just like that, they're all in there. Should feel pretty good. Next item, get your, I call them S-cams. It is actually the cam that turns that separate bottle rack. So is there a particular direction? I always put the leg, the top leg always pointing towards the rack. So here's where we'll have to do the install up here. We're gonna move this up here onto the board a little closer. Make sure you can see it all. Get these all lined up like so. So those rollers will be flipping around, something similar to that. But right now you can set them in just like this. And one at a time, we're gonna set these legs in there. As you go up the stair, step them up, get them all in there, just like that. So your next step's getting your S-cams in, and always, like I said, put that cam, the top cam, on each turnstile. It needs to be heading towards the rack. So sometimes you got to turn that leg so it is in that position right there, and like so. So you can see the bottom here. We got the leg in that position right there. We'll put a screw in there, kind of hold it in place, keep it from coming apart on us. I won't tighten them up right now. Give me a little Phillips. We won't tighten them all the way up until we get them all in there. Just kind of snug them up. So remember, each S-cam, you'll grab this bottom leg, grab the leg, you'll turn it until the leg is down, in the down position, and I try to get that leg to pop into that little slot up here in that one rail, and it's ready to go back together. And watch when you're tightening these up, do not get them cross-threaded. That is a tough screw to find. Once again, grab that leg, get it turned, get that drop down in there, and get your, and I try to make sure that leg is situated on each one of these. I like to do these by hand because they're so critical on tightening up. You don't want to strip it out. To the next one, make sure you grab the leg, pull it down just a little bit. Keep it going, pull the leg correctly, like so. Those are spring loaded down there, so you'll always have to remember, in order to get it to line up, you've got to pull them into a position in order for that to work. Okay, 3 more. Those little tabs there are stops, so it can't go backwards. So if you get one that's kind of flipped back, you're gonna have to take it off, flip it back around, and then it'll work like it's supposed to then. 2 left. That's looking good. And the last one. All right, we're going to tighten these up a little bit. They're all feeling good. All right. Okay, if we've got all your screws tightened up on the back, make sure those are all in good shape. I want to flip this over right now and give you look at that rail. That rail really cleaned up. Super, super nice. Super nice. I've checked all these springs right here. They're all good. We had one broken one, and you can see it just snapped right in half. So an HP 8A, I believe that is a Funtronics number. I'm sure you can get it from Soda Jerk Works too. So depends on where you're ordering from. These are available. I always try to keep some on hand because you never know when you're needing some of these. So we'll install this one here right quick. Not too tough to put on. There we go. That's all working good. All right, on to the next step. Make sure all these springs are in place. We will now take your face piece and we'll slip these over. We'll bring this camera down just a little bit so you can kind of see this. So you'll bring this over and one by one, you'll start lining these up. If you saw this rack when we took it apart, it was rough. It was in good shape, but it was just the paint and everything was just, it was time. It was definitely time. So those are all looking good. So next step is dropping your shelves in. So all these have been powder coated. I used kind of metallic, almost looks similar to what was on them originally. Looks a little bit like a hammer tone, but in a powder coat, but man, it really come out good. So when you're lining up, we'll get this around here where you can kind of see it. When you're lining up, the first one to line up is not too bad. So you got a little tab here that's going to hook into that little piece right there and that front fascia. And this little tab here goes into a little slot right back in there. You see that or not? That little tab. So I always stick the back end in first into the little slot, bring that into the housing area, and that will hook in. That'll hook in right there. Take one of your straight shafts. Actually, this one here has a bolt in on this shaft, on this one here. I always pick the second row, and if you're trying to figure out what the world you're talking about, the second row is kind of middle for middle-sized bottles. I've always done it, never had to really ever change anything, so I'll be going into this slot, get that all lined up. We'll come through here, and the first one's always a little bit floppy because everything's kind of not tight yet, so once you get a couple of them in, it'll start tightening together really good for you. So don't get too worried about it. It's not fitting good or something. Okay, so get your nut on there, kind of tighten this one up. We can always get that shelf to pop back in if we need to down the road, and we'll just kind of finger tighten them right now. Just kind of hold some things together. So your next one, and one thing about keeping it loose is getting these shelves in there. It gets a little tight. If you're dropping your shelves down in there, put your back end in first, and then kind of get your tab in the right position here in the back end, like so. And then get your front tab locked back in. And at this point, if you need to loosen your nut just a little bit to give yourself a little bit of room to get these snapped in, this should allow you to lock that shelf in. And then we'll use a straight pin, just a straight pin, going through the second slot again, and through the second slot of this one, and we're in. We'll keep going. So stick that back tab in first, and then get your other tab locked into your fascia board, or the front face. Put your number 2 slot through and through and through the second one. And there we go. We'll continue on. Once you get going, it ain't too bad. But you want to make sure that hook does get in there before you tighten everything down, because that's what really squares everything up really nicely. And that one's in there. I love the powder coat. I used to not, we didn't have velo building earlier, but since we've had the powder coat available to us, man, it just makes these shells so much nicer. The longevity is so much better. The wear pattern is not something that is an issue. It just takes a lot more wear on powder coat. And on the mid one, you do a bolt. So the bolt will go through just like the straight rods did, and then back together. We'll keep going here. But man, you can really see the buffing. The Vivid Restore is a great finished product. If you've got a little bit of steel wool, if it's really rough, and obviously if you got a wheel buffer, definitely helps, but finish that with your Vivid Restore. That will bring that luster back. Works good on stainless, chrome, pot metal. Well, this does looking really, really good. Probably a good idea, come and get your 2 top bolts in that have the pin in the middle. That will kind of hold that together to the rack. Slide that in there right quick. Just got that finger tight, but that will kind of help hold that together a little bit. We'll go ahead and put the top one in too. You will see when you're doing coming across the rack, it makes a big difference when all these 4 corners are tied together. It really tightens everything up really good. The next 2 shelves, like that, and the last shelf going in, and we'll put the last rod in. Okay, so everything is a little bit loose. We'll get the bottom, one of the last rails it in. Your spring, this is kind of the one that holds the spring on the bottom, that holds that return selection in there. So we'll get it put in. It goes in just like that. That will definitely tighten up some things. And your spring that's underneath there, I usually put it in this first little notch. We'll flip this over here in a little bit, but let's tighten these down. Make sure, it's going to tell you where to look. See if I can get it close enough to where you can see it. This little tab right here is the one that you want to make sure when you get this tightened down, it gets locked in. So let's get a ratchet. That's a 3/8 nut on this side here. So we'll tighten all the nuts on this side first. Do not over tighten these, just get them snug right at the beginning. We'll come back in and make another round on these. Once we get this tightened up, we'll get the rack lubricated up. About that tight, one here in the middle. Okay, and then this top one, we'll have a bottom one there that we'll do. We'll go through and make sure everything is locked in on each shelf. A little tab, make sure it gets in the proper hole. This will really tighten everything down. Okay, so let's go through each one, make sure we're in the slot correctly. Once we get that, then we'll tighten everything down super good. Usually start at the bottom. There we go. Now we'll tighten everything down one more round. And do not over tighten these, they will snap off. I usually keep extras in the shop. Usually when you take them out, they break. They're all rusted up. This set here come out pretty nicely. Pretty good, pretty good. But cleaning that stainless up in there, that really makes this thing really detailed. We've got some decals we need to put on here yet, but it is very, very, very close to ready. All right, let's put that cylinder in there next. Cylinder's at the bottom. This is where your door comes in and turns this to open your rack up for the next one purchased, basically. This is something definitely you want to put some lubrication on. I can tell you right now, that piece needs to go down past that little notch. So if you're putting this together, I'll show you the notch. I thought about it and thought I was on the correct side, but I'm not. I need to be on the other side. Because if you do it like this, you can't get your nut on to the back of this cylinder. So if you have the cylinder on there already, you would have been alerted that this is not correct. Got a lock nut on there, so it's going to come off all the way to the end hard. There we go. So kind of show you what I'm talking about here. Get it down here where you can see it. There's going to be a little lock tab. Let me pull my bolt out of there so we can kind of see this a little clearer here. So there's a little tab right there. I was on the top side of it. It needs to be right there. Now you got room to put that nut on. So refeed your shaft through. There we go. But there's a little tab there. Go in between the two tabs and you'll be good. Well, that takes care of that a lot better. Obviously this has a square shoulder, so once you tighten it up, that should free spin right there, just like that. And your spring will lock into this hole right here, and it will go straight up to the next hole. I don't know if you can see this, a little wiggly here. That hole right there. It might be easier to put that bottom one in first. Put that one in, then down in that hole. I have to bend it just a little bit to get a little bit of curvature, like so. Then bring it up, hook it into your cylinder, like that. So let me get this tightened up here. We are just about ready to flip it over. You know, your 56 rack, your 81 rack, all going to be very similar. Obviously the 56, not as many shelves. That's feeling good. That feels good. All right, now it all looks good. I'm going to tighten this up just a little bit. And don't over tighten that one either. All right, let's flip this back over, but kind of give you a shot of what we're looking at stainless wise. Shells, background all painted on the back side. Cleaned that all up, but man, looking really good. We'll flip this over, and now you've got a long spring that hooks into the back, and it hooks in right here. Let me find the hole it goes into. It's right here, if I can see it. Well, let's see if we can get it. Probably should have put this in sometime way before now. See if I can get it a slot to where I can see it. Might have got lucky. Might have got lucky. We'll see. Wow, I think I got it. I don't know if you got that on film or not, but I did get that spring back in there. So when you're putting this long spring in that pulls the rack back together, basically, once you've vented one out, there is a cog that spring hooks to, and I should have shown you that on video. I got lucky and got it in without it, so if you ever get this together, yes, you can put it in, but it will be a lot easier when the dividers are out of there, and obviously the S-cams are out of there. You will see the little cog that it hooks onto, and it's right above the third hole up. So about the third hole up, there's a little cog that spring hooks to. You will see this spring right here. It's hooked in right here like this. It comes back here to the third hole, and there's a little cog that it hooks onto, just like that. So my apologies, I did get it to hook in this way, but make sure before you get to this stage, if you're this part in the video, yes, you can still pop these S-cams off, but you can get it to hook. I just did, but the easier way would be while these are out to get those in that position. So my apologies. I thought you could catch that tab in between two of these slides, but as you can see the spring right there. You can see it right there. There's a spring right there. So the spring is right there, and it hooks in right here. But whenever you do the ratchet assembly to get it to move, you can't see behind that little finger there. Let me try the second one, see if it changes any. See, it's like right there. But hey, hopefully that gets you to the next step. We will run some lubrication on this right now, and we're going to be about done. But if you haven't done any lubrication, this is a great time to do it. I'm using the fluid film. I believe part number is AS11. AS11, great product, fluid film. They've been around a long time. Start the lubrication here, and then I start working the rack, and you can tell a big difference before lubrication and after. Big difference. But doesn't take much. Just get enough in there and then start working the rack. Work your ratchet assembly down here, and then work this on each one. I do each cam a little bit down here, I see. Kind of work that really good. That always kicks back, feels good. That's the way you want it to sound like. If you need more tension, you can give it a little bit more. It's all feeling good, and I like the way it's really popping really nicely right now. So there you got it, but it is looking quite awesome. But you can see that stainless is all cleaned up, the powder coated shells, everything's looking really good.